Testing. Let me see. You would have to, yeah. Good evening. We're going to be starting shortly, so I'm just going to kindly ask you to start taking your seats, and please try to put your electronic devices in mute, in silent mode. We have a few minutes, but I like to start on time. I'm going to check mine too, and I assume this is going to be on, but then, yes, one is mine and one is yours. So good evening. Welcome to Town Hall. My name is Gina Inguanzo. I am the town clerk. I know many of you. Thank you for being here. And I want to welcome all of you, and I want to welcome the people at home that are watching via YouTube. Thank you for connecting virtually as well. I am the town clerk of the town of Miami Lakes. I've been working for the town for 12 years. I'm a resident as well, a very happy resident of this beautiful town for 23 years. The first thing that I want to do today is first thank the two candidates that are here with us, Ms. Esther Colon, Mr. Brian Morera. Why do I want to thank you? Because I know that election cycle takes a toll on you, on the candidates, on the families, on their friends. And I do acknowledge that, but I do want to say thank you for the commitment. Thank you for running a good race. I've been very happy with what I have heard and seen so far, and I hope this continues until the runoff election, which is next Tuesday. You all know that. I'm going to use this opportunity to make sure that everyone is aware that you have to go to your precincts. This is not early voting. It happened during the election day. So next Tuesday, April 30th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., everyone reports to their precinct. The polls, the 7 districts, are also in the program. I just did it so that you can share with neighbors that maybe they don't have social media. And please try to motivate people to vote. This is important. This is our special election, and I hope everyone can vote. We have 2 wonderful candidates. Your commitment is, I thank for your commitment. And let us begin by saying that this is a town hall meeting, a little bit different of what the moderator, Alex Penellis, hosted a month and a half ago. This is a little bit more intimate. That's why you're going to see the difference that we don't have the 2 candidates up on the dais. We have them in the table closer to you. I hope and I know that this will be conducted in a very fair, professional manner, as we always have, with respect. This is an opportunity to have open communications between all of you and the candidates. My goal here, and I know as well for Mr. Penellis, is to foster a good dialogue, to promote always transparency in government. Again, as I started saying tonight, I've been here 12 years, and I think that has been my goal in the office of the clerk. It is the office of the clerk who is hosting this, and the office of the clerk is Gina Inguanzo and Victoria Martinez. We do this in collaboration with staff, with the support of the town council, of the town manager, and of all my colleagues. But basically, not many municipalities do this. And again, I need to thank the moderator, Alex Penellis, because he did it. We were together here, when was it, a month and a half ago? I called him, and immediately his response is always, I'm available. I'll make it happen for the benefit of our residents. So thank you again, sir. People that know me know that I love quotes, and I'm always using quotes. It's my nature. I guess I was brought up by a Cuban grandmother that I was always using quotes and sayings. That's part of who I am. So tonight, before we begin, I just want to read a quote from someone that was a Miami Laker, dear to everyone's heart. You don't learn how to function in democracy without actually doing it. We need to inspire people that there is a better future if they will become an active part. So I want to say again, one last time, thank you to Ms. Colin and Mr. Morera, because I think you are definitely doing your active part by signing up, by going to my office, by campaigning, by doing what you feel is right. That is definitely positive civic engagement. And as well, to many of you or all of you that are here, instead of being at home, you're here trying to learn. So with proceeding forward, I just want to share some information from the moderator. I think you all know this better than me, but I feel that it is my duty to always go over through a little bit of Mr. Penellas' biography. He was born in Miami of Cuban descent. He attended St. Thomas University and graduated in 1981 with a degree in political science. In 1985, he received his JD, Juris Doctor, from the University of Miami School of Law, where he graduated with honors cum laude and was inducted into the prestigious Iron Arrow Honor Society. He served as a member of the Hialeah City Council from 1987 to 1990. He served as a member of the Miami-Dade Board of County Commissioners from 1990 to 1996. Then in 1996, he decided to run for mayor of Miami-Dade County, and he won. And then he was reelected as mayor in year 2000. Mr. Penellis served as the 5th mayor of Miami-Dade County from 1996 to year 2004. He lives in Miami Lakes with a beautiful family. He's a great public servant, a very competent attorney, a great family man, and a proud resident of our town. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Alex Penels.
Gina, thank you very much for those kind comments. And ladies and gentlemen, good evening to those of you here in the audience and those watching at home as well. I too want to start by thanking the town, the manager, the mayor, the town council members, the clerk, for this kind invitation. As Gina said, as a proud resident of Miami Lakes, I too have an interest, a very profound interest in getting to know those individuals who want to represent us a little bit better. As someone who went through the electoral process for many, many years, I understand how difficult it is, the sacrifices individuals make, their families. So I too want to thank the candidates, those who are here today, and the other ones who submitted themselves to your consideration in the primary. They were not successful, but they are winners, all of them, for having participated in this process. So thank you again. Tonight, as Gina mentioned, we are conducting a town hall meeting. And the town hall meeting tonight is to have, as Gina mentioned, a very sincere, transparent, and intimate discussion with two individuals who seek to be elected to the vacancy in seat number 6. As you know, that seat is vacant. We held a primary election on April 9th, and the two candidates here tonight were the two top vote getters. They, in turn, will face each other this Tuesday. People are voting as we speak. Absentee ballots have been mailed. Folks have been filling them out and returning them. So we hope that this process assists those who perhaps haven't voted yet or will be attending their precinct on Tuesday to get to know the candidates a little bit better. So I want to elaborate a little bit on the format because it is going to be a little bit different from the format we've used in the past. In the past, I've basically taken the responsibility of doing most of my own research and developing my own questions. But Gina and I felt that it would be good this time around to give more deference to what you all want to ask. So what Gina did was she posted on the town website and other social media venues the opportunity for residents to submit questions. I did, in fact, receive many, some of which I will be using today. Time won't permit me to use all of them. But we also want to give audience members here tonight an opportunity to ask questions as well. And I think the best way of organizing that is by topic. What I've done is I've tried to organize the questions that were submitted to me electronically. I've tried to organize them by topic. So I'll try to keep the discussion focused on that topic after I go through the questions that were submitted online. Then we'll ask the audience if you have any questions regarding that topic. Okay, if you don't have a question about that topic but something else, then it will come up later. But that way we could keep some sort of order to today's proceedings. As I've done in the past, I do want this to be a free-flowing discussion, but a probing one. There's no time limits. I'm not going to hold you to a minute or 2 minutes. Feel free to say what you got to say, but be brief and to the point. And if I don't think you've answered the question, I'm going to come back and and ask it to you again, right? There'll be follow-up questions. I may stay on with one candidate for a series of questions. I may not ask both candidates all the questions, and I may not do this in any particular order. So we're just kind of go as we may. But in that, we'll need to incorporate questions from the public as well. Now, because this is somewhat ad-libbed, the audience participation and all, we need to make sure everybody is conducting themselves accordingly. There's no jeering, laughing, clapping, booing, none of that. Because if we do that, then we'll have to basically cut off the audience participation, because we do want this to be a dignified proceeding. And also you'll notice that I will probably give deference to some of the topics that we didn't have that much time to discuss the first time around. Okay, so you may say, well, why didn't you talk about this issue more? Well, if it was something we covered at length last time, I'm not really inclined to spend too much time on it today. I'd like to talk about some other issues as well. So are we clear with the format? You guys are good? Any questions about how we're going to proceed? If at any point you need to add something or feel you need to just, raise your hand or whatever the case may be, and I'm going to be happy to call you. So anyway, I thought we would start. It was interesting there, even though you all had one opportunity to face voters a few weeks ago, there were still a few questions about your qualifications and priorities. And let me read some of these questions. It's interesting. People still are very interested in knowing a little bit more about yourselves and your background. So for example, JP Garcia at jpgarcia1322@gmail.com writes, what background experience do you possess that uniquely qualifies you to serve as a town commissioner, especially as it refers to making physically responsible decisions, working with a balanced budget, and prioritizing essential town services? And similarly, we had a question from, I'll tell you right now, QuintanaFamily2@gmail.com. If elected, what would be your priority? So a little bit about qualifications, a little bit about priorities. I felt that would be a good place to start tonight. Okay. Ms. Colin, why don't you take the mic first?
Can you hear me? Good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Esther Colin. I am a Miami Laker for 31 years. I am a proud public servant of 32 years. I retired as a town manager. I've worked in local county government. I am award-winning individual for Distinguished Budget Awards and Distinguished Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. I have done just about everything in municipal government. I started internship in 1977 when FIU was a Primera Casa with a dirt road, and I started in the city of Sweetwater. From there, I climbed from an accountant to account clerk to assistant director to a finance director. And I would say my biggest accomplishment, which is very important to this town, is I served as the Assistant Director of Management, Finance, and Budget for the Broward County Sheriff's Office. I say that because our police department is more than 51% of our budget, and it also costs more than your ad valorem and your franchise fees. So qualification, I've done everything of probably everyone in this that serves this town, that works for this town, and my qualifications speak for themselves. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Morera?
Thank you for the question, Mayor. My qualifications in terms of fiscal decisions is what I believe the question probably meant, not physical. As far as it relates to being a councilman, not a commissioner, is number one, I did serve 2 terms on the Satori Board of Directors, 1 term as president, 1 term as vice president. In both those terms, we did have to pass and balance a budget. Obviously, it's not at the same scale as the town's budget, but it is 482 property owners. It is representing the interest of constituents. It is $1 million+ budget. So that does apply. On top of that, I'm also a business owner. I run my own law firm. And at the end of the day, in many respects, it is anecdotal to this because there's no one to bail you out when you own a business. If you overspend, if you spend more than what you take in, you go bankrupt. It's that simple. We need to treat our town's finances the same way and make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with our budgeting process and our expenditures.
So quickly, what are your three top priorities?
For me, the top three priorities are going to be number one, the police force. There's no point in having a city or a town with, you know, a beautiful town with tree-lined streets if we're not safe, if we're walking around clutching our pearls. We need to feel safe. And at the moment, our police is currently understaffed. The second one would likely be, for me, it's I do live on the west side, so it is blasting. Blasting is a major concern to those in the west side and to many in the east side as well. That's not going to be an issue that gets addressed or that gets regulated here on the dais, but the Miami Lakes Town Council, I always tell the residents, when you bubble in a name at the ballot box, you're voting for one title, two positions. The two positions are first policymaker, lawmaker. The second one is representative, spokesperson, leader on behalf of people. This town council needs to advocate on behalf of its residents when it comes to that blasting issue. It needs to get louder. It needs to get stronger. It needs to start being unafraid to do what's necessary to get some
Okay,
blasting.
we may get to that just a little bit later. Quickly, Ms. Colin, your priorities, just, and you
My
could just
first
list.
priority is no more taxes, no additional franchise or utility fees. My second priority is holding management accountable. I don't like to see a $400,000 expenditure on the consent agenda when the current council just blanket approves it without any questions, without any change orders, without any inquiries. $400,000 is above the threshold of the town manager's expenditure. And the third issue is working together to see if we could begin a zero budget process with the residents of Miami Lakes. We have to stop spending, have unnecessary spending.
Mr. Amura, in the context of qualifications priority, I did receive a question from Abel Fernandez, and I will say for the record, let me disclaimer here, Abel is a supporter of Ms. Colin, so I just want to be very clear, but he is directing this question at Brian, and it has to do with your commitment to this office, a sensitive issue because the seat is vacant now because the individual who held the seat resigned, even though that was a big issue, if you all recall, during the last campaign. In any case, the question to you, Mr. Morera, from Mr. Fernandez is, you had previously served on the blasting advisory board and cited that you were resigning because you were starting a family and your new law firm. Being a representative on the town council will require much more hours than serving on a committee. How do you justify having resigned from the blasting advisory board and yet are committing to having time to serve the residents as a council member?
Thank you to you and thank you to Mr. Fernandez for the question. And I do appreciate the opportunity to clear that up for the residents. In late 2023, my law firm was frankly experiencing unprecedented growth. I think it speaks testament to my ability to run a business and get results. Time did become very short for me. I did not have a lot of time on my hands. I was spending a lot of hours in the office. What's changed between then and now? It's a very valid question. And what's changed is I hired employees. When there's too much work, you hire employees to help you. As soon as I got my time back, I put it right where I like to put it, which is community service, helping our residents, being of use to my overall community. I've done it in the past with Satori. I've done it in the past with the BAB. I've done it in the past with the NIC. And now I'm doing it on behalf of all 33,000+ of you. I want to represent you up there and I want to get results for you.
Ms. Colin, you spoke a little bit about your extensive qualifications, including your stint as a town manager. The reality is that in April of 2010, you were in fact fired as the town manager in Fort Lauderdale by the Sea. Is that correct?
In Lauderdale by the Sea, my services were terminated. Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that in any way contradict your claim to be qualified for this position?
Absolutely not. My contract was terminated April 10th. I submitted my resignation, my retirement papers to the state of Florida, April 30th. They did not give me the opportunity to resign. However, I received my first retirement check from the state of Florida, May 1st. And the reason my services were terminated, and I'm very proud to say this, is Mr. Richard Weiss, the attorney at that time, I was given an order for selective enforcement. As a member of the dais, through the chair, I asked a question to the town attorney because I will not and would not abide but by an unlawful order. I told the council I will not do selective enforcement, nor will my staff who are under the direction of me as a town manager. When the attorney told the town council that they could not give me an unlawful order, that severed all relationships I had with the town council. I am proud to be a retiree of the state of Florida, and I am proud that I was able to stand on my own 2 feet and not follow an unlawful order. Until this day, I will do the same.
So the Sun Sentinel in following those meetings repeatedly referred to your firing. You're taking exception to that.
Yeah.
You said you're saying that your services were terminated. You were not
Well,
fired.
if the town would like to do a public records request to the state of Florida, they will see that my retirement resignation papers were put in before my actual termination of my services.
Now, your replacement, the person that was chosen as an interim town manager, was also fired a week later for, and I'm going to quote the Sun Sentinel. This isn't, folks, this is public record. It's not me. Okay. I want to quote, that individual was fired for processing a rapid direct deposit severance payment to Ms. Colon in the amount of $298,188. That's the Sun Sentinel, April 26th, 2010. And a few weeks later, according to the Sun Sentinel, you returned $43,250 of that money. Can you explain to the people of Miami Lakes?
Yes, so the $43,000 was my sick leave pay. I had accumulated sick leave pay in the 10 years I've served the town. They did not, my agreement said that I would pay all unused time during my service. That portion accounted for my unused sick leave. They decided to interpret it different. It is in my agreement. I have a copy of it. I can share it with you. However, I chose to hire an attorney. I am a public servant at heart. I believe in serving the residents. And under my attorney's advisement, we agreed on an amount to return. And I preferred to return it than to incur legal fees and upset my residents. I was a real close individual with the residents of town of Miami Lakes.
Fair enough. Mr. Marrera, shortly after the primary election, you told the Miami Laker that you felt that you had a lot of momentum in this race. The reality is that, 40,000 people live in Miami Lakes. We have 20,004 registered voters, and 620 people voted for you. So is that momentum when 3.1% of registered voters put you in first place? And in fact, that percentage is even significantly lower if you include the totality of the residents. Is that momentum? What's wrong here when so few people are turning out to vote? And is that really momentum?
I do think it's momentum. Momentum is relative. If you go from 0 miles an hour to 1 mile an hour, there is momentum. That's not what I was referring to. I was referring to the fact that when we go to the doors, and I've always from the beginning emphasized the doors, knocking on doors. At this point, I've honestly lost count of the thousands of doors that we've knocked on. We get extremely positive feedback. That being said, what does it say? The turnout, it says that people are apathetic about what's going on the dais right now. And they're apathetic about politics in general, and they're apathetic about the representation they feel that they're getting. That's one of the reasons why I've made the word results one of the most overused words in my vocabulary. It's not about these aspirational things. It's not about making promises that you can't keep. It's about getting results. I have a one of these iPhone notes that you can create with, I honestly lost track of how many, but there's approximately 50-ish direct issues with residential addresses attached, street lights out, trees that are within a foot from the structure of a residential dwelling, potholes, so many things, boundary disputes with the town. Those are the things that we are put on this dais to actually solve. Yet when we come up here and talk about these more aspirational things that are not really decided at this level, it makes the residents feel as though they are not being listened to, because their issues, the ones that affect them on a day-to-day basis, are not actually getting addressed.
By the way, in a moment, I'm going to ask if there's any questions on these subjects, but one last question on this topic. Ms. Colon, so far 959 Miami Lakers have turned in their absentee ballots for this runoff. That's less than 5% of registered voters. What's going on? Why are so few people interested in voting, quite frankly, for either one of you?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that I am an individual who has voted for every election that has occurred in this town. If people feel that they're being disenfranchised, it's sad, because that's the message that the town council has sent. We as individuals can only knock on so many doors. I am running a grassroots campaign. The money is coming from my pocket, from some of my friends that are here. I don't have grassroots money, so I'm trying to get the vote out through as many people as I know. But if the town has disenfranchised the voters and it's not working since November, maybe they're just lost interest, which is really sad, because the people are the ones that decide the future of the town. Maybe they just lost interest.
Gina, I think we have a question over here. Gina's going to help me, by the way, with the audience. So make sure you make eye contact with her if you have a question at any point. And again, let's keep it to this subject that we're on right now.
Thank you, Maria Kramer. The town of Miami Lakes right now, the council members represent the entire town, not their district. A crucial question to me is, if what is good for your area is bad for the rest of the town, like when you imposed the Mount Sinai Hospital, that was great for your area, but you killed all of us because we don't have a decent hospital close to us. So my question is, as an elected official, not as a private citizen, that's a different story. If we have a conflict between what is good for your neighborhood and what is good for all of us, where do you stand?
Mr. Marrera, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Mrs. Kramer. When it comes to resolving a conflict of interest, is essentially what you're bringing up. I'm an attorney, so we deal in that realm all the time, where we have to deal between the interest of the owner of the company and the interest of the company as an entity on its own. When it comes to the Mount Sinai issue, there was no conflict of interest because I represented 482 property owners. I actually stood right here on the podium in public comment, as well as face-to-face with the leadership team from Mount Sinai. Not once did I say, "Hi, I'm Brian Morera," an individual. Every single time I said, "Hi, I'm Brian Morera. I represent 482 property owners." I was representing the homeowners. I was in a representative capacity, not in my individual capacity. I keep harping back to that time on the HOA board. There were times where I was president and the board of directors did things that I did not agree with. I might have even voted against them, but yet I still carried it out because I was the president and that was my job. When it comes to the specific issue of the hospital, I did not kill you. I didn't kill anyone. Mount Sinai chose a location with such an extreme design where it would have not only paralyzed traffic in West Miami Lakes, but it would have placed a helipad 90 feet away from a person's backyard. This isn't an issue about representing a particular part of the town. This is an issue about common decency. I mean, those people weren't going to be able to have backyard furniture without it getting blown away by helicopter wind. So to me, it was a very easy decision. But to get to the root of your question about distinguishing between what's good for an area where I'm at versus what's good for another area, I have a pretty wide net in Miami Lakes. I live about as far west as you can go. My parents live about as far east as you can go. I have a lot of friends in this town. I frequent a lot of businesses in this town, and I have a lot of relationships throughout this town. So I don't see bias towards any one area being a thing that for me.
Well, let's give Ms. Colin an opportunity to address the issue.
First of all, I am not an attorney. I am a proud resident of the town of Miami Lakes. I am also a proud public servant for 4 decades. And I believe that whatever approach or whatever project is in front of us, I think we have to consider all 33,000 residents of Miami Lakes. If it is something so detrimental, just like the Optimus Park that went on a ballot, if it's an issue that is very detrimental and it appears to be separating the East from the West, which should not be even spoken about, but it is often, I think it should be a ballot question. I mean, they put other things on ballot questions. That was very important. I personally would love to have a hospital by me. I know a lot of seniors would like to have a hospital by them. And I hope that maybe someday we do see the Graham Senior Center and the Living Assistant Facility being built, which it doesn't appear to be built. But whatever the issue is, I think that all the residents of Miami Lakes need to be afforded the same benefit.
So I think Ms. Kramer's question is a good segue to the next topic that I want to get into, which has to do with the overdevelopment and traffic. There's a couple of questions I'd like to read from Tracy Edwards. She writes, who is going to stop the Graham companies from continuing to overbuild this community with zero infrastructure? Again, folks, these are not my questions. I'm reading questions that were submitted. And similarly, JP Garcia asks, how do you propose on fixing the traffic issues we have in our town? So I think those two questions kind of go hand in hand. Ms. Colin, why don't you start?
Well, I can honestly say stop development. I think I mentioned that before and I'll say it again. As far as the traffic issue, maybe individuals need to start reading financials and the budgets that this town prepares. Because in 2019, they spoke about the expansion of the 59th Avenue project, and that projection number was 8 million. That money was taken from the People's Transportation Fund. The People's Transportation Fund is the money that we use to be able to build on, to give us an alternative route to come in and out of the town. That price tag as of yesterday's meeting is over $10 million. So if they're taking the People's Transportation Fund to be able to build a thoroughfare on 59th Avenue, what study was done? In April 2019, there were two underpasses that was supposed to occur at 146th and 160th. And that was a total of $3 million, 1.68 each. I'm a number person, so I love to look at numbers. What bothers me is that while we were in the conversations with FDOT and we were in the planning stages with 68th Avenue and 87th Avenue, it appears that everything stopped. And I'm assuming it stopped because when you're investing over $10 million of the funds that we have to alleviate traffic in Miami Lakes, where are you going to get the money from? Tax the residents? And this is not myself speaking. This is actual documents that I've requested from the town clerk and I've started to analyze. So if the town council does not make traffic a priority in this town, then we have an issue.
Mr. Marrero?
Thank you for the question again. When it comes to the first question, who's going to stop the Grams from overdeveloping the town? I believe is what it was.
Generally.
Generally. If your answer is stop the development and nothing further, that's a recipe to get sued. People own private property and they have a right to use their private property in accordance with the county's comprehensive development master plan, and in this case, the municipal zoning code. The issue that you have, and that's why I've made a comprehensive review of our zoning and planning. One of the issues in this campaign is you take one issue here. You have the golf course where they're currently building out this multi-use facility with 250 living units, retail underneath, and a 250 person capacity banquet hall is what I've heard. And people are complaining about that, but yet the Grams will tell you that they had the right to build up to like 900 and something, according to the zoning ordinances and according to what they're entitled to, by the way, without a hearing, without a vote of the residents. They generously, is what they'll tell you, reduced it and only built 250. Well, if the zoning code allows for the building of that many units, then something's wrong in the zoning code. We need to make sure that our zoning code actually reflects the fact that this town is extremely overcrowded. I mean, and this is for me one of the issues I'm most passionate about because it's why I jumped into the race in the first place. I put my roots in this town. I grew up here, and now my roots are firmly planted. I've bought a house. I've set a business here. I'm planning on raising my family here. I don't want to grow up 30 years from now and there be high rises and skyscrapers in Miami Lakes. It has to end. But simply saying stop development, people have the right to do on their property in accordance with the zoning code. But once you go to amend it, you will have public hearings. People will be able to come, comment, and sure, the Grams will come and they will have their perspective. But
So-
they are one taxpayer. You are 33,000.
So on a different type of traffic, Lynn Matos writes, the number of low-flying planes utilizing the Miami Opelika Executive Airport has increased over the past 2 years, resulting in significantly elevated noise levels. If you are elected to the council, what steps will you take to safeguard property values and the quality of life for the residents impacted by the noise pollution? After their responses, I'll ask if anyone in the audience has a follow-up.
Sure. Would it
Right.
be okay if I answer the previous question on traffic that I never got to?
Briefly, please.
Very briefly, you're not going to magically delete cars off the street. So you need to create additional ingress and egress into our town, and you need to improve existing ingress and egress into our town. What does that look like? They forced the 170th bridge opening on us. Many of you already know I was one of the biggest advocates against the opening of the bridges, but now they're open. We didn't have much of a choice in that. I want to flip that on its head. I want to work with the county and with FDOT to extend 170th westward to where it meets the turnpike. Create some on and off ramps. Now, all those people from the Hialeah Annex are no longer crossing the bridge, and instead they're hooking onto the turnpike right then and there. And West Miami Lakers are actually the ones using the bridge to get on the turnpike. That declogs the Palmetto and 154th. I want to do the same at 67th and the Grantney, create on and off ramps there. That way you further declog the entrances to our town and create a better flow of traffic rather than simply just sitting here and wait and doing nothing and waiting for things to get better magically. To answer the second question, it was on traffic of
Well, Opalaka,
of the airplanes. Like I mentioned before, my parents live in Eagle's Nest. That's about as close as you can be to the runway. So the planes are flying very low. And growing up in their house, we basically became desensitized to it. I don't see how people nowadays, I don't see how they do it. I don't see how my parents can still do it because the nature of the type of plane has changed. It used to be single propeller Cessnas going out on, on traffic patterns, just practicing student pilots, things of that nature. It is now nothing but private jet after private jet after private jet after private jet. And these things are not only very loud, they're also a lot dirtier. These East Miami Lakers,
okay, so the question is, what can you do about it as a
Sure.
council member?
I don't think you can really argue too much with the FAA and with the planning. One of the things I like to do is research the issue and understand where is the rulemaking power. And then, like I said before, when you vote for a candidate, that you're voting for a lawmaker and a policymaker, but you're also voting for an advocate. An advocate is another word for lawyer. That's me.
Ms. Colon?
Well, let me clarify. We are not voting for a lawmaker. We're voting for an elected official that works with a group of 6 other colleagues. I see this as the blasting issue. This is not a local issue. This is an issue that needs to be addressed with local leaders, with our state representatives, with our senators, with the FAA, and we need to all work together and collaborate. We can't say we're going to stop planes flying from from the airport. I live down the block, so I hear them every day. If we continue to say we can do, we're just kidding ourselves. The blasting issue has been an issue for over 20 years. I have lived here for over 30 years. Let's stop saying we can do it. We cannot do it. Don't keep on saying we're going to spend money for this committee and blasting and lobbyists, that's what I heard last time. Let's use a uniform effort, get people who are actually know the issue, research the issue, and bring us a solution that we can all work at all levels of government. We cannot do it.
Okay. Any, one question on, again, development, traffic, Opalaka, let's keep it to that topic.
First, about the traffic and the building, unless I'm under some sort of misconception, I seem to remember a council a few years back, they had to grant variances. They had the power to grant the variances that allowed the high rises. And that was a big mistake. Even if it's somebody's private property, if you have certain building codes and regulations for your town, your area, they're not allowed. Like, I couldn't build a 60-foot tower on my property. It's my property, but I can't do that. So no developer should be allowed to do things that are detrimental, like a 7-story apartment building, and they are ruining the town by doing it. So somehow the town has to have the power to be able to not allow those things, or say there's a moratorium now on building. There has to be a way, I would think. Is there not?
Yes,
I have another.
since you didn't ask a question, I'm going to go to the next topic because we have to move right along. And we did receive a lot of questions on code enforcement. So I want to get those on the table here now.
Say something about their situation.
Oh, okay.
I went all through this. My husband was a commercial airline pilot, and we know that the tower has the power to tell the pilots, vector them, and tell them not, come in on a dead east to west or west to east approach. Instead, what we're getting now is not only Eagle Nest under all the traffic, but the planes are taking a wide funnel approach. So they're going over a wider area of residential homes. And I think there has to be a way for us to make enough complaints to the tower. They claim, oh, we don't vector pilot. I know that's not true. So the town should have some power to do that too. I hope you will try.
Thank you very much. On code enforcement, Quintana Family 2 generally states, where do you stand on code enforcement? JP Garcia more specifically asks, lately our town has had an increased amount of illegal dumping throughout various areas of the town, which is in turn devaluing our homes in town. How do you propose the town can fiscally responsibly fix this issue? And JP Garcia also goes on to ask, how do you propose to address the multiple beautification HOA violations, such as broken fences on 154th Street, on 67th Avenue, and the outdated maintenance in communities, such as the one in front of Public Shopping Center? Are the town inspectors not performing enough inspections and issuing fines? By the way, there's many other questions, and it all boils down to code enforcement. And those are just some of the examples. We didn't really touch on this subject last time, so I thought we'd take a moment today. Ms. Colin, why don't you start and talk to us a little bit about code enforcement?
I'm very familiar with code enforcement. It was a department I ran as a town manager. I believe that we need to hold management accountable. We're not holding management accountable. However you want to describe it, you can describe it. I walk this town, I ride this bike in this town, and I believe there's selective enforcement in this town. For example, my son lives in Loch Lomond. We just had some trees removed and come to find out that they didn't go through the required steps, let alone put the $1,000 into the tree canopy reserve fund that we're supposed to do. I'm also a treasurer of an HOA in Miami Lakes, so I've been involved in HOAs also. HOAs need to be held accountable, and the town needs to actually cite them when necessary. We're going through a tree replacement in one of the associations that I'm the treasurer of, and we did the tree assessment. They told us you can't remove the 30 trees, but if you want to remove the 30 trees, pay us $30,000. Well, that's not the point. The point of a code enforcement is if something is wrong and it's not abiding by the town code or the zoning regulations, cite them.
So what is it? Is it a lack of inspectors? Are the inspectors not
I
doing
think
their
it's like,
job?
I just think it's like a management.
So management from the administrative side?
From the town manager down.
Do you
We have
agree
a
with that,
town
Mr.
manager.
Marrera? Is it a management issue? Is it a resources issue?
I don't know if it's a resources issue, but I do know that it's an issue of being reactive rather than proactive. People in this town, as I've walked through, have given me countless complaints on code compliance, on nothing getting done until they get so angry that they just blow up the phone of the poor receptionist here at town hall until someone picks up the phone, and then they practically have to stay on the phone with a code enforcement person until they show up at the house, because otherwise they won't show up to do their job. That is not the way things should be run in the town of Miami Lakes. With regard to the more general issue of code compliance, I have noted the selective enforcement as well, namely many residents in the West Lakes area, which is the area west of 87th Avenue, south of Satori, have lodged significant amount of complaints towards me as towards too heavy-handed code compliance, whereas then there's other areas of the town where there's no enforcement whatsoever. People can get away with just about anything. You go to Crooked Palm, and there's someone who looks like all the contents of their home are outside, and yet the town isn't doing anything about it. So on that issue, I very much agree with Ms. Cullen that we do have a selective enforcement issue.
So in this context, JP Garcia also asks, how do you propose to address the vagrant homeless population that has increased in our town recently? Any thoughts on that, Mr. Murr?
Humanely and in the most respectful and dignified way possible. They need to be relocated to a place outside of our town. It does obviously decrease property values. It does cause a safety concern. It causes a health concern in many instances. So that is something that frankly should not be allowed in our town. But obviously, with the dignity that a human deserves, and I very, very much stress that part, they should be relocated.
And they
Um,
should be you said relocated outside of this town.
Or inside to somewhere where they can safely be, not in that condition, not in that
Colin?
vagrant condition.
Homelessness is a country issue. It's in the whole United States. I believe we've had 2 issues of homelessness where Camila's House came in to try to help them. They took them to Camila's House and they made it on the way back to Miami Lakes. You cannot just take an individual from a park bench and take him to Hialeah. You just can't do that. The police do not do that. So through community efforts, through Camila's House, through other organizations, I'm a big community volunteer at Lotus, at Camila's, at Phoenix House. I think we just need to work as a town and provide the service and help them out. But you just can't pick them up and relocate them. You can't do that.
Let's take any audience questions on homelessness or code enforcement.
Hey guys, John Roger. Obviously, I ran alongside you guys and along on the lines of walking along to meet all the folks that I talked to. I ran into a lot of people saying that they had a serious problem with code enforcement, not paying attention to modifications that were made to homes that should have been illegal. And all they got was a simple fine or no one's even noticed. Whether it comes to completely concreting the entire front yard instead of actually having grass, or having trees just completely removed with no comment whatsoever, just like, oh, we just took it down, and it takes the town 2 to 3 years to find out it even happened. Do you think, and this can go to both of you, do you think we need more code enforcement, or do we need to revise the way code enforcement is handled in this town to stop these illegal modifications that makes us look not like Miami Lakes, not like Coral Gables, which is what we feel like, but more like a country club or whatever,
Sure, I'll happily take that one. The answer is both. We need more code enforcement, and we need to change the way we do code enforcement. As I mentioned before, we need to change from we need to change from being reactive to being more proactive, and we need to get more serious about it. If someone is making modifications to their home of that nature, they're concreting their entire front yard, that goes against everything that it is to be a Miami Laker. We like green in this town. And people have to understand that when they do that, I think Ms. Crook mentioned a little while ago, it hurts all of our property values. It's not, you can do whatever you want on your property, sure, but then the zoning code is there for a reason, because it prevents you from doing things that it would otherwise diminish the overall look and feel of the community, and therefore reduce property values, which is what, at the end of the day, that is your biggest investment, is to have your property value decrease because of the actions of your neighbor. That's about the biggest insult that one can give.
Ms. Colon?
I will respond the issue of the concrete front yards. The town approved some of those concrete on the front yards. What many people don't know is that you need to have impervious areas so that when it rains and we have torrential downpours, you have impervious areas. The water has to percolate down. But when they approve those concrete sidewalks and then they put those little make-believe grass in the middle, where is the water going to percolate to? It creates a flood. Then they say, well, now we need drainage programs. Well, you can't approve projects that are just going to incur an additional expense to the town. They're not thinking. I don't even know who comes up with these ideas. Impervious is very important when you talk about storm drains. We're going to have the issue now in Fairway Drive. I came to the workshop, the only resident in the workshop. They're going to spend $1 million on Fairway Drive to narrow the lanes and put 2 bike lanes. And the first thing I said is more concrete, more asphalt. Is there a drainage component to that? And the engineer looked at me. I said, well, it's about impervious. I said, sir, I know impervious area very well because in Lauderdale by the Sea, as the finance director, I was involved in it. So the town created that problem, not anybody else.
I want to move on to an issue now, which we really didn't spend too much time on last time. And that's the ongoing discussion as to whether the town of Miami Lakes should have its own police department. I think it's an important issue to have a discussion and get a clear response from our candidates. I went back and reviewed both of your responses to the Miami Laker questionnaire back during the primary. Ms. Colin, I think you were pretty adamant in suggesting we should not. We can't afford it. Mr. Marrera, you were a little bit more open to the idea. You listed a series of criteria that perhaps should be considered before making that decision. Why don't we start with you and just tell us what your thoughts are on that issue.
I love this issue because it gives the residents a glimpse into what I would hope is the kind of leader that they want. Someone who is not going to make a rash or rushed decision, but is going to weigh all of the factors in rendering a decision. I'm not going to make a knee-jerk reaction just because I think that it's going to be tough to build our own police force. Frankly, there's a higher likelihood than not that it is going to be cost prohibitive and that the answer will be no. But until the information's in front of you, until you have hard data in front of you, there's no point in speculating. I already previously gave the factors that I would evaluate in rendering a decision is what are the short-term costs, what are the medium-term savings, if any, and what are the long-term savings. If going to and as well as if there are no savings, then how much better of a service are the residents of the town of Miami Lakes getting for that extra cost? There's a Spanish saying, lo barato sale caro. And at the end of the day, I subscribe to that belief, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more to get much better service. But if I'm paying a lot more to get the same service, that makes no sense. And that's ultimately what's going to drive this decision. If the town residents are going to get far superior service for maybe a little bit more, then it's going to be a tougher decision. But in my opinion, and this is strictly, opinion based on economies of scale and the fact that we are a very small town, it's going to be very, very cost prohibitive to go that route. And it will likely be a no, but I'm not shutting the door on it.
Ms. Colin?
As the Assistant Director of Management, Budget, and Finance for the Broward County Sheriff's Office, I decided to leave the Blasting Advisory Board and join the Sheriff's Ad Hoc Board because I read the first study this town did pertaining to starting our own police department. It was cost prohibitive. If you look at the numbers, just look at the budget. 100% of your property taxes currently go to fund a portion of the police department. So for us to fund the current police department, we use the 9 million of your property tax, 100% of it. And then we have to dig into 1.2 million of your franchise fees to be able to pay for your police department. Another issue you all have to understand, I've negotiated many contract cities. We do not have the infrastructure. Do you know what it costs us to get a building, vehicles, training, specialized divisions. We cannot at this time match Miami-Dade County. What I do want to bring to your attention, if this town wants to continue to get in debt, remember one thing. In 2014, we had a cumulative debt of business activities and general fund of $9 million. As is the audit report, which was discussed in the beginning of this month, our cumulative debt is $25 million. Can anyone here justify us having additional debt to have our own police department? We just simply can't afford it.
Any questions regarding the police department, and specifically whether we should move towards an independent body? Ms. Gina will help you.
Hi, I'm just curious, would that vote go out to the residents? Or is that something that the council would vote on?
I don't know.
May I?
Sure.
I don't know what the charter says about that, but I do personally believe that given that it is half of the general fund, I would say it very much should.
Any other questions regarding the police department? If not, that's a good segue into what happened here last night. There was a budget workshop that several members of the council participated in regarding the carry forward budget. Whichever one of you gets elected next Tuesday, that be one of the first significant votes. It's basically the amended fiscal year budget for the town. Mr. Murrah, may we start with you? What were your impressions of the manager's recommendations? Are there things you think you'd like to see in there that you didn't see? What can you comment on what in effect will be the amended budget until, I guess, October 1, when the new budget goes into effect?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I did have a chance to review the entire meeting. There was a lot discussed. There was a lot about the litter crews. There was a lot about the 67th underpass heading north. And there was also a lot of talk about the senior exemptions. I agree with the senior exemptions. There was a couple items where you really got to see where the town's priorities are. And it's very telling. There was an issue that came up about, I think it was Cowpen Road and the street lights, and the town had the option of installing, standard street lights or more decorative ones. And those decorative ones were admittedly going to be less effective. They're not as bright, and you would need more of them in order to actually light up the street. And on top of that, each one is more expensive. Do we need lights or do we not need lights? We don't need to go wasting money. It's a street light, it's not rocket science. With regard to the underpass, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with Councilmember Collazo's position that rather than spend a dime on cleaning up the underpass, I want to hold FDOT accountable. It's their job. They need to do it. And at the end of the day, like I keep saying, when it comes to these budgetary decisions, it's going to be an issue of prioritizing wants and needs. Would we want more decorative lights? Would we want some of these nicer things? Sure. What do we need though?
Ms. Colin, as part of this discussion, you mentioned you were at that hearing yesterday. One of the council initiatives is to reinsert the $150,000 line item for the town police department study. So again, if you feel so adamant on the issue of the town having its own police department, should the town be spending $150,000 to even study the issue?
Well, I'm proud to say I'm the only resident that was present at that meeting.
You've said it several times. Yes,
I-
we've heard you.
I had public comments, and the first thing that the first thing that I agreed on was a senior citizen and disability relief fund for $77,000. Talking about the underpass, I strongly disagree with that because it's called art in public places, 154th underpass, $27,000, and that should be an FDOT issue. We shouldn't be here, doing art in an underpass. As far as the 150,000, I strongly oppose to that. And I'll tell you two other items I strongly oppose: the pickleball courts at Barbara Goldman High School, and the Veterans Park exercise equipment, and some other basketball resurfacing. I am opposed to spending any money on any park or any school that the town does not own. The Miami-Dade School Board has to start being held accountable. We need to work together. Let's collaborate. But to say that you're going to spend $1.4+ million in surplus, which 3 years ago we started at 5 million. We're down
Well,
to
on that
1.4.
issue of surplus, let me read a question from Albert Aguiar, and let me direct it to you, Ms. Colon. In the period between 2014 and 2022, the town's general fund generated a surplus of $12,634,000 while budgeting for a shortfall of 2.6 million. His question is, should the town continue to accumulate a surplus, or should it reduce taxes? If it does continue to accumulate a surplus, should it earmark it for specific projects? So that's an interesting question, right? Surplus or reduce taxes?
I went back to 4 years and I have analyzed $11 million of surplus, which with property values going up, you should be able to go to the rollback at all times. Like in this year, when I went to the property appraisers meeting, our property taxes have gone up. Therefore, the property tax that we're going to get on a rollback will be the same property tax that we are receiving to fund our current services.
Now, I think both of you,
Stop inflating a budget. I really think, I know that you're inflating budgets. You cannot have a $5 million surplus fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021, and say you didn't inflate the budget. I don't get it.
On the issue of the rollback, this will be addressed to both of you. Fernando Herrera has several questions in that regard. He says that while individual savings are important, concerns exist about potential cuts to essential town services due to reduced revenue. What are the potential advantages and disadvantages of adopting a rollback rate? How can we strike a balance between individual homeowner tax relief and maintaining a strong foundation? So a lot of people feel that, yeah, the rollback sounds great and it's a politically convenient thing to say. However, what are you sacrificing in return for that, Mr. Marrera?
I stand by what I said last time. The council's decision to choose the rollback rate in the last cycle made complete sense. We're living in a period of by U.S. standards, hyperinflation. Everything is more expensive. Milk costs $6+ a gallon. I think in times like these, elected officials have a fiduciary duty to their residents to keep the burden of government as low as possible. I do think, however, it is naive to say roll back forever. And year after year, that's just not doable. Not in, as we said, a period of hyperinflation. The rollback, as Ms. Cullen mentioned, is the same exact revenue from one year to another, the dollar amount. Did expenses stay the same? You tell me. Has lumber increased in price? Has construction materials increased in price? Has every single thing you buy increased in price? Yes, it has. So if you're planning to fail, if you say that you're going to do the rollback every year, that would be ideal. It would be amazing. But in my opinion, it's not very feasible. Like I said, our duty as elected officials is to keep the tax burden as low as possible for you, especially in these kinds of times. But that being said, you can't cut essential services. You can't stop providing the things that people are paying for. And you can't become inefficient either. It's important that we do the things that need to be done in this town and prioritize those over the wants. I always go back to the wants versus the needs. And for that reason, yeah, I think that the town council made that decision now, and it was the right decision. But whether it can be sustained, indefinitely is a different story.
So another budgetary issue, and which again, a lot of questions on this. I'm just read a few of them. From JP Garcia again, where do you stand on utilizing town funds, town residents to finance special projects such as the Miami Lakes Optimus Park beautification project? Albert Aguiar says, are you willing to vote to authorize the town to borrow funds via bonds without voter approval? What is your stance on the Optimus Park improvement program? How much borrowing should the town enter into to perform the improvements? And are you willing to compromise with more affordable improvements? Ms. Colon.
I'm not going to disenfranchise voters. I will not approve any funds to improve any property that is not owned by their town. However, everybody in this room needs to know that when you go from a $9 million debt to $25 million debt, some of these bond issues have been approved without voter approval. Why? Because they pledge revenues. For example, they'll take 2% of the franchise fees and says that's the pledge revenue that we're going to use for this bond issue. So please be very careful. Nobody comes to the meetings. Nobody listens. They can pass a bond issue to approve Optimus improvements. It just has to be a lower threshold. They just have to find the pledge revenue that they're going to allocate to do it. I will not approve not even a cent to anything, any park that the town does not own. We are severely in debt, $25 million. When is it going to stop?
Mr. Morera, I think it's important for you to clarify the following. I mean, I think you were for the Optimus Bond program before you were against it, and there's been a lot of talk on social media about that. I'd like to give you an opportunity to clarify your position.
Appreciate it. When I was approached by Mr. Jim Hamilton, not only was I shocked that he even knew my name. To me, he was a legend. He threw batting practice to me when I first did my tryouts for Pony League. When he contacted me about making the improvements to Optimus Park, I was all in because Mayor, you coached there. You know the conditions of that park. It needs improvements. Once we formed our group of people that were supporting the improvements, simultaneously the town council was starting to present the renderings and the options available. There was, I think, a $10 million option, a $15 million option, a $20 million option. It started becoming, we started having these meetings as a group supporting the Optimus Fund or the Optimus improvements and the bond. I started throwing out a lot of ideas about funding, about revenue. I threw out ideas ranging from leasing the light towers to cell companies, using creative naming rights, and no, I'm not talking about billboards like I-75 or I-95. I'm talking about the fact that most people don't even notice that there's a scoreboard on one of the fields that has Ocean Bank's name on it. You can have sponsorship and it be tasteful. But sponsorship opportunities, the fishing dock that has been closed pretty much permanently. Anyone ever fish there? No? Yeah, that's because it's always closed. And it's closed because the town thinks it's too big of a liability to open it. Well, let a private company lease the space. You just created revenue for the town and an opportunity for the town to have a service. Sure, and they'll rent pedal boats, paddle boats, stand-up boards, kayaks, etc., fishing rods, so that people can actually enjoy our green spaces. On top of that, I recommended that every single walkway in that place be engraved with, be made out of bricks engraved with names of donors. Every tree should have a plaque. Not every single one, but the nicer ones. And the main point in this isn't that that was going to be this insane amount of money that was going to cover everything. The main idea there is to not simply go diving into the pocket of the taxpayer. It was to find other alternative revenues. More and more, though, I felt that my proposals were getting just ignored and not supported. The council at that point, I believe, then decided to go forward with the full $20 million option. And at that point, I was out because I said, you're not trying to actually make these improvements. What you're trying to do is get the residents to approve an insanely high amount of money for something that residents don't actually use, which, by the way, the issue of ownership is a very legitimate issue, but to me is not even the biggest one. We own 1/3 of the space. I don't know if we have anyone here who rents, but when you rent your space, you put frames up, you paint it, you put a couch and a TV on the wall because you're still using the space and you want it to be nice for you. Even though you're renting it the same way we're renting the space at Miami Lakes Optimus. The real issue with the Optimus was when the statistic came out as to who uses it. When it came out that 15% of the park's users were Miami Lakers, but Miami Lakers were going to foot 100% of the bill, I was out. It's that simple.
Fair enough. So let me open it up real quick.
Mr.
Anybody have questions?
Mr. Pinellas, can
Yeah.
I ask Brian with a wire question?
Can you do what?
Can I ask Brian with a wire question? I'd like to ask him a question.
No,
about
no, we're not going to do that right now. What I would like to ask is if anybody in the public has a question regarding the budget or Optimus Park, or on that subject. Anyone other than Ms. Kramer? She already spoke. If not, Ms. Kramer, go ahead. On the budget, please.
Number one, did either one of you attend the budget meeting last night?
Yes, that was answered by Ms. Cole, and she was here,
Oh,
and Mr. Morera saw it online. Yes.
When it comes to that park, you guys have to understand that there is a long-term lease with the school board that nobody talks about. And you were right, Brian. The reason it was not approved is because we were going to get stuck for funding everybody else's kids. And until that changes in a bad way, I'll bet you $1,000 that it will not pass. And until the optimists accept the reality that they have to step up and help with the funding, it's never going to happen.
Maria Kramer, the only question I have is I'd like to know if Brian, Mr. Morera helped the Optimus Park write their charter. And if that was a conflict.
I'm an attorney. I help. It's what I do. We created a charter for that committee. Let's be very, very clear about something. A committee gets together for a certain purpose. The purpose was supporting Optimus Park. There's nothing in the charter about $20 million. There's nothing in the charter about the bond, I believe. That's neither here nor there. Just like you are proposing to contribute to the town, your skills as a town manager, I propose to use my skills as an attorney. I did it then. I did it at the HOA board. I did it for that committee, and I'm going to do it for this dais.
By the way, okay, so by the way, tonight's format does not include candidates asking questions of each other. So just for the record, I do want to move on to another topic that has resulted in many questions and also comments on social media. And it really has to do about what many people feel is the division on the council. And I'm going to start, and Ms. Cole, and I'll ask you the first question. This comes from a resident by the name of Fernando Herrera. And Fernando writes, the current council has faced criticism for struggling to reach consensus and move forward on key issues. As a leader, what will you bring to the council to foster collaboration, find common ground, and build a more productive and effective governing body?
I would probably bring education. I am retired. I love to read. I would probably be one of the most prepared elected officials, as I'll go through the agenda back and forth. I have no problem sitting with the town manager, sitting with department heads with the approval of the town manager to dissect what the questions are, to be able to work with the elected officials and maybe educate them.
Along this lines, Mr. Marrero, this question was directed at you again by Abel Fernandez, and I want to put a disclaimer on the record again that Mr. Fernandez is an outspoken supporter of Ms. Colon. But Mr. Fernandez writes the following question. It seems that there are two different group. Again, I'm reading this verbatim, so forgive me for any grammatical issues. It seems that there are two different group thinking mentalities on the council. There's those aligned with the current mayor, and then there are those aligned with Josh Diegas. In researching many of the contributions, he's referring to your contributions, and political action committee contributions, those are aligned with council member Josh Diegas. He goes on to state the following: by you participating with him, helping you get elected, will you be responsible to him? Will you have to align your votes with council member Diegas if he is elected mayor?
My parents are in the room. They would be shocked to see me ever be beholden to anyone because they know how much of a stubborn hardhead I could be. At the end of the day, this is an issue where a lot of Ms. Colon supporters have tried to suggest that the money I'm getting is somehow tied, that it's dirty, but let's call a spade a spade. Political committees are part of election law. They have been for decades. Mr. Mayor, you're very familiar with them. As a matter of fact, they're subject to the same level of disclosure requirements as the regular campaign is. You can go up to any political committee and look at their donation history and their expenditure history and see what they're doing. And you can also see who is donating to them. As far as whether it somehow makes me beholden, I have let's talk facts. I've received 114 contributions, 41 of those contributions from Miami Lakers totaling $12,425. More, how many of it? 66 of them have been for $100 or less. At the end of the day, all you have is people who you take years of developing friendships, professional relationships, client relationships, friendly relationships with your neighbors. You put in the hard work, you make the phone calls so that you can fundraise, so that you can get your message out, and you put in the hard work, as I'm sure many of you have already seen. My step counter is insane. Many people have seen how I've lost weight from how much I've been walking on a daily basis, thousands of doors that I've knocked on. And all that hard work just gets reduced to, you know what? It's just dirty money.
Well, it's not dirty money.
Honestly, it's offensive.
It's not just dirty money. I mean, if someone looks at, and this is as of last Friday, reports that both of you filed, you've raised $28,600, almost $8,500 of which in the runoff. I mean, that's a lot of money for a small council race. And if you do the math, it comes out to about $46 a vote based on the number of votes you received. So, I mean, what do you tell the public that's saying, why is this young man raising so much money for a job? I don't even know what the job pays, but clearly it's a lot of money for a council seat in Miami Lakes. What do you say to those voters who have concerns about that?
Like I said, years of building very positive friendships with working professionals. And there was another concern in the same strand of comments that you were looking at about the fact that it's all attorneys. I'm an attorney. Yes, most of my friends happen to be attorneys, and they are able, thanks to the relationship that we've built, to contribute to my campaign because they know the positive change. They've seen my advocacy in action. They've seen me go toe to toe with interests more powerful than the interest that I'm representing, and still fight the fight. And so they're willing to put their money where their mouth is and support me, not just go on social media and try to throw dirt. Instead, they actually put their money and helped with the positivity.
Now, Ms. Colon, the flip side of that is you've only raised $11,500, including the runoff. What's also interesting is $4,000 of that is your money. That's not a lot of money to be running in Miami Lakes. What do you tell the voters? I mean, do you have a legitimate shot of winning this? We receive 5 mail pieces a week from Mr. Morera. He knocks on our door. The emails. How can you expect to win? What do you tell voters who want to support you by saying she has no shot because she doesn't have the resources? What do you tell them?
I'm proud to say that as of today, Esther Cullen has donated to her own campaign $9,500. I have very good neighbors sitting right in the front row. I will not accept a penny from seniors that I know that even $25 hurts their pocket. I am doing a grassroots campaign. This town was built by a civic association, grassroots efforts. And if you're really a Miami Laker, it's not about raising $20,000, $30,000. It's trying to be genuine, trying to really do what you know is in the best interest of this town. I have also walked on doors. I've lost 11 pounds, but I don't need to raise $30,000 to speak to Hector, to speak to Enid, to speak to Magali. We're friends, and I'm not going to ask my friends for money, Mayor Pinellas. And yes, I'm serious about this campaign.
Mr. Murrah, you talked about the influence of political committees, and you even made a mention that they have to report their contributions, and we know who they are. Yet there's a group called Concerned Residents of Miami Lakes, which no one knows who they are. And I couldn't find them registered. I couldn't find them registered anywhere. When I called the phone number that they texted from, it was first busy, and then a Verizon company statement came out saying that the call could not be completed. Anyway, this particular text has annoyed a lot of voters in Miami Lakes, and I'm going to quote it verbatim. It says, Miami Lakes can't afford a radical woke commissioner with a cost of food, insurance, and gas at all-time highs. Miami Lakes needs a commissioner who takes action, not makes excuses. It goes on to say, April 30th, vote Brian Morera and block the woke agenda from entering our small town. It is signed, Concerned Residents of Miami Lakes. Do you know who these folks are, Concerned Residents of Miami Lakes?
I wish. There's no scenario under which a text like that would benefit me. We were running a very positive,
So you had nothing to do with this text.
No,
Did you participate in the drafting of this text?
I know.
Are you
I would
aware?
at least put counsel.
Are you aware of anybody that was involved with this text? Did you authorize this text in any way?
No.
Okay. Then let me ask you something. Do you agree with the comments it makes? It says that Miami Lakes can't afford a radical woke commissioner with a cost of food, insurance, and gas at all-time highs. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with the tone. I texted Ms. Colon the morning after the April 9th election promising a clean race. I think that the tone of that message and
then why haven't you made any public comments to that effect? Because it's great that you texted her after the primary, but I have not seen any public denunciations on your part denouncing this text. This has been circulating for a week now. I've looked at your social media. I've looked on the mail that you've sent. At no time have you disassociated or distanced yourself from this.
Well, on the one hand, like I said, I disagree with the tone.
The tone.
Correct.
Okay. Well,
I agree with it in substance, though. If you take it to its bare meat, which
Okay.
is that we cannot afford someone who is trying to bring issues that divide us into this town, that I do agree with. I think
okay,
that
so
Ms.
you're saying that if you agreed with the substance, you're basically saying that Ms. Colon would be a radical woke commissioner. Is that correct?
No, If I was saying that, then that would be, that's
Then
mainly,
what part of the substance of you are you agreeing with?
I'm agreeing with the part that she has tried to bring issues into this race that have nothing to do with what with the values of the town of Miami Lakes, nor with the job that we have as.
Are you
as
referring to the
council.
cost of food, insurance, and gas? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm referring to her issue with the pride flag, and mainly she is the one who started this. Let's be very clear. That right there is someone, I don't know who, exercising a First Amendment right. It hurts me, honestly. And it is a direct response to her sending out, one second, this text, because you have screenshots and so do I. This one saying that essentially people should vote for her just because she's a woman. And then there's another text where she doubles down on it and says that she's, if elected, she will be the only woman on the council, which completely ignores the fact that there is already a woman on the council who, by the way, has never made gender an issue. And by the way, yes, she'll be out in November, but guess what? There's a qualifying period for a race in November, and any woman is welcome to join. We would welcome any woman on this council. But to say that she doesn't represent men, if I said that she doesn't represent men, that would be taken the wrong way.
Okay, so to be clear.
For me to say, for someone to say that I can't represent women is also equally preposterous.
Okay, so to be clear, you had no knowledge of this text, you didn't authorize the text, you didn't authorize it, and you don't know who the concerned residents of Miami Lakes are.
No,
Ms. Colon, do you consider yourself to be a radical woke candidate?
Obviously not. However, if you look at the Oxford Dictionary, the definition defines woke as it's an adjective. And originally was defined as a well-informed individual. I'm proud to be a well-informed individual. It was later said to define that the Cambridge defines it as being especially aware of social problems such as inequality. I'm going to go further. The American creed of this country, I am born and raised in this country, says that I believe the United States of America as a government by the people, for the people, and the people, whose just powers are derived through the consent of the governed. We are all made equal. We have equal rights. We have human rights. And I will always defend rights of all individuals, whether male, whether female, whether white, whether black, and regardless of gender. And if that makes me woke, Mayor Pinellas, call me what you want.
I'm not calling anybody anything, just for the record.
No, I said, call me what you want, but
Okay.
this is what you see, what you see here is what you get.
I would like your response to Ms. Moreira's concern that you are appealing to the fact that you're the only woman candidate. And in fact, he points out to a text message that has an urgent banner on top, says Miami Lakes Council risks losing women representation in November 2024. What's your response to
I
that?
have been very outspoken. Marilyn Randall terms out this year. She has chosen not to run again because she's turned out. So the only position she would be able to run for is mayor. And we already have 2 candidates. I am a former member of the Women for Commission in Miami-Dade County. I have stood up for women's rights for the past 10 years, whether it's domestic abuse, whether it's human trafficking. I'll be damned if I apologize for a statement that I say I will be the only woman. If you look at the demographics in this town, 57% are women. I am proud to say that I will be the only woman sitting on the dais
So
prior to November,
many of you mentioned
after November.
many of you, both of you mentioned the upcoming mayoral election. We did have some questions on that. Again, Mr. JP Garcia says, which mayoral town candidate are you supporting for the upcoming election and why? And I also have a question here from Fernando Herrera, who says, given the candidates that will be going up for election for Miami Lakes Mayor in November. Who do you support and why, Ms. Colon?
Well, since I believe that that's not a top, I answered that the first go around. That is not a topic that affects me right now as a candidate for this race. So I defer not to answer neither question.
Mr. Morer, do you care to answer that question?
Sure. I think we have two strong candidates running, both with a lot of support behind them. In my opinion, the better candidate for the job is Joshua Dieguez. He has a very pragmatic approach. He has a tendency to look at the issue from numerous angles and dive into the nuance and the minutia of the details, which is how I tend to do things.
Okay. So I thought it would be appropriate to close tonight's session asking a question that in part honors the memory of a great Miami Laker, someone who served not only this community, but the state of Florida and the nation with honor and dignity. I think he taught all of us a lot about governing, about humanity, and that's Senator Bob Graham. And I'd like both of you to maybe in your closing comments share with the voters of this town any story that you may have about Bob Graham and what you particularly have learned from him and how you would apply that if you were elected council member. Mr. Moreira.
I never had the distinguished pleasure of meeting him in person. He was likely before my time. However, his impact has been felt time and again, and it's still felt to this day. He was a champion of something I also just mentioned a moment ago, which is pragmatism. He was a man who put, partisanship and the ugliness of politics at those high levels that he was in to the side and just thought about what the people did. He, I think, set a very positive example for us who aspire to be future leaders in our community. I know that his leadership is going to be sorely missed in his own family, but also generally in the town. And I think that we can all learn a little bit from him. And he was also someone who, like me, going around with my little notes app, taking personal notes of every little issue I find. He was someone who was willing to get his hands dirty and help the community himself.
Ms. Colon.
First of all, my condolences to the Grahams family. I am involved in many initiatives with the Grahams family. I personally know Governor Graham, Senator Graham. I have pictures I posted on Facebook with Senator Graham, Governor Graham. I have learned that you have to serve the people, regardless who they are. I learned a lot through work, doing service work with him. I have many pictures. I've shared some. So I'm here because I believe in service. I'm a unique individual. This is who I am. And he was the same way. He actually advocated for everybody. And that's how I intend to continue to do and how I've always lived my life. Thank you for the question.
Well, on behalf of the audience members and those watching at home and Gina and the mayor and everyone involved here at Town Hall, I want to thank both Esther Colon and Brian Moreau first for your willingness to serve. I think they both did a great job tonight. Let's give them a round of applause. We wish both of you much luck in your election on Tuesday. And if you haven't voted yet by mail, you still have a few days to do so. And you could also go out on election day to your precinct. Thank you very much and have a great evening.